So hello and welcome back today. I'm just super excited for our next guest. We met back in LA when I was doing comedy down there. He's awesome. I'm so excited to have him on because I don't meet too many other comedians who also have an MFA background. So I'm excited to pick his brain about that a little bit. You can see him all over. He's performed comedy all across the country. You could also see him performing on NBC's Last Comic Standing, Buzzfeed, VHYes. He has an upcoming feature film. We're going to want to hear more about that, of course. He even has a TED Talk out there. So this is going to be super exciting. Please welcome Erik Escobar.
Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited and stoked to be a part of this. Yeah, we met in LA, probably about 5 years ago now? Jeez Louise.
I know. Where does the time go? Oh, before I forget, I forgot to give your contact info. I like to get that at the top so they could hear it at the top and again later.
Throw out my social security number, throw out everything. Let's put it
exactly.
all out there.
That's why we have to do this. If you're listening on audio, there's a video available on YouTube. So you guys are going to want to see his style, his beard, everything if you're going to try to steal his identity.
Please do. Please do. Just make sure you get the glasses, the right hat, the kind of bad 5 o'clock shadow on the head. It'll be great. But yeah, contact info stuff. People can definitely check me out. Instagram is my main thing, at Erik Escobar. Erik Escobar Comedy is my website, but I feel like I update it as much as everyone else updates their website. Right. So it might be a couple months old. I feel like there's a lot of pre-pandemic shows on there. So that's exciting.
Right.
But yeah, that's where people can check me out. And yeah.
Erik Escobar. Cool. And then before I so rudely interrupted you to talk about your contact information. Yes, we did. We met in Los Angeles about 5 years ago.
It's so cool because I think right now with the pandemic happening and this comedy being in such a weird state, I feel like there's a lot of people that you love working with and you meet and you're like, oh, they're a cool comic. They're good people. I want to see them again. And maybe a year later, you might do a show together. 6 months later, you might do a show together. But it's crazy because in this pandemic with Zoom, I feel like I'm getting to reconnect with all these old friends. And I'm like, there was no reason why we should work together, but we're not doing anything. Let's do a podcast. Let's do a fun Zoom show. It's great. We can all dial in. It's fun.
It's true. It is a flip side, bright side to the situation. And I don't know about you, but at the beginning, I just didn't think I would ever do a Zoom comedy show. But after a certain amount of time, you just miss it. And it's like, well, if this is the closest I can get, you just got to do it.
Definitely emphasis on the closest you can get because it's not the same. It's so not the same. I did a show in a park probably about 2 weeks ago. And I was like, I've been zooming it up. I've been doing all these virtual shows. I'm good. It's not going to be any ring rust. I'll be fine. Then I went up there and I'm like, oh my Lord, this is very different from looking at your phone in your garage.
It is. So have you ever had it where their audio is on and you could hear them laughing? Because so far it's been complete silence because the audio is off.
So what I found that's super interesting is every virtual show is really as great as its producer, like straight up, because you can have a bunch of killer comics, but if the producer doesn't know what they're doing, it can be super awkward. Then you can have a bunch of like first timers, open micers go up, but they just know how to work it. And it's like, oh, cool. So I'm very pro, let's keep our mics on, but I'm also very pro, does the producer have a good enough eye and like security vibes to make sure no Zoom bombers come in? So when their mics come on, we're not like super screwed. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yes. I'm looking for, my mom actually said to me yesterday, because I was, well, it won't be yesterday by the time the podcast comes out.
For sure.
but she was just telling me, she's like, Samantha, why don't you get a laugh track so it won't be so weird for you? And I thought, I guess I'd just be like one of those 90s sitcoms then. I'm doing my act and just pressing the button, insert laugh here.
He also gives you some props. Maybe you can get some shoulder pads. It'll be great. It'll be a nice throwback.
You know what? I actually did turn into a prop comedian for just like 30 seconds, just at the very beginning. Because I have a story about when I was on Let's Make a Deal. And there's a costume piece that I'm not going to take it up on stage with me. It's a little
For
bit
sure.
awkward. And then how do you hide it? I'm like, you know what? I'm doing this at home. Why not?
I have it. Might as well use it. I
Yeah.
have been doing so many shows in like a romper or like a onesie. You know what I mean? Just because it's
Uh-huh.
like, now's the time. If I'm going to wear my Let's Make a Deal costume, if I'm not going to wear pants, it's fine. We're in the Zoom world. It'll be okay.
That's right. You just want to make sure camera's up.
Yeah. Well, depending on your act. We'll see. We'll see how the donations work out. I have a quick, actually you brought it up, I have a quick Let's Make a Deal story.
Okay.
Can I share it?
Yes.
So it was definitely during the pandemic. I want to say this is probably about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
You also act, it's a crazy time. I'm submitting for everything right now. Whatever it is, I just want to try to get work. So I submitted to Let's Make a Deal. And they were like, oh, we would love to bring you on the show. We're doing a virtual version of it. It's not live anymore, but we like Zoom in. It's super cool. And I'm like, oh, this would be great. So let me like watch some of the episodes just so I know how it works. And when you're on Let's Make a Deal, you know, they're giving away cars, they're giving away yachts, they're giving away gym equipment. Let's Make a Deal virtual is now like, well, you got that right. So if you can find a pen within the next 5 seconds, you will win a $20 Amazon gift card. Like they have no budget anymore.
Oh,
So you're
wow.
winning like $10 Target gift cards. Like here's a
So
hat.
easy for them to get a pen though at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's wild. It's just definitely not as crazy and big as it was before.
I thought you were going to say you win like some hand sanitizer. You win some like survival skills. Toilet paper.
I would love that. Yeah. You win a Zoom premium account for 6 months. Enjoy yourself.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So, I could just stay in this like comedian lane for the whole podcast, but I have to remember the point, of course, is, just, yes, being more happy. We're already happy, but how did like being a comedian, but then you also have your MFA, like,
Mhm.
did that change your life at all? I mean, do you notice any differences in your personality and or like how you deal with things in life?
Ooh, great question. I feel like straight up stand-up wise, during my MFA, so it was in interdisciplinary arts, but my track was very much comedy, humor studies, all theory, good stuff like that. So I feel like it really forced me to write more. So I gained more time, which is really exciting. And I think I gained more time because when we're doing our regular thing, it's like, well, let me think of a bit. Let me sit down and write for 10 minutes. When you're doing an MFA, you're like, oh, I'm going to be 80 grand in the hole after this. I better have at least 45 minutes when I walk out of this. You know what I mean? Like, as long as I have something. A lot of my research, though, throughout the MFA program was how to live a more fulfilling life through comedy and how to use comedy as not as a means to replace therapy or to solve, you know, mental illness or anything like that, but rather how can traits of comedians and things that we do, how can that translate to basically living a more fulfilling life, which was basically the core of my TED Talk, how to live a more fulfilling life through humor. And I think that really opened my eyes up to really just, as not even as a comedian, but as a human being, to really take those skills as a comic and those things that we're doing as comedians and really try to implement it in everyday life. So not only can I have a more fulfilling life, but also make sure the people around me feel cared for and we can connect and we can vibe with each other and they can feel like they can say anything and I can be open. Because at the end of the day, comedy just comes back to connection and trust. If you can connect with a crowd and they trust you and you trust them, it's going to be great. So why not do that in everyday life?
It's awesome. Yeah. Did you have a situation that comes to mind where you were able to use that skill to connect with somebody that maybe, you know, might have been a little bit difficult to connect with at first?
For sure. I think a big thing, especially whatever your political views may be in this current climate of America,
Right.
I feel like we're in a situation where it's like, whatever you believe, whether on the left or the right, since everything's going down right now, you really have to double down on your beliefs, or everyone feels like they have to double down on beliefs.
Yeah.
Maybe they were hesitant on being a Trump person, but now they're getting attacked so much as a Trumper that now they're going to be like, you know what, now I have to love Trump instead of just kind of be on his side.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Biden, same with, you know, everyone. So I think it's interesting because there's a lot of political engagement that's happening nowadays through conversations, through podcasts, all that good stuff. And before, I feel like it was like, well, you believe this and I believe this, so we can't be friends and we're not going to talk to each other. But through humor, the very common language of like, I want to vibe with you and make you laugh, and maybe you have something that can make me laugh, it really creates a lot of breadth and openness. So I think, all the examples that kind of come to mind are, someone who believes something very differently than me. But if we can connect over humor and over a joke and laugh about something, then they're more open-minded to hear my perspective. And I might be open-minded to hear their perspective, even though our current president is a big old beehole.
Yeah, there definitely are those great human things that we can connect on. And it's unfortunate that some of the issues, I admit it's a little bit hard for me to have an open mind depending on the issue, because when somebody
Yes.
believes a certain thing that is in complete contrast to my humanity, I will often just be the bigger person, because hence his life of being in the minority, of having to be the bigger person as a person
You're
of
a
color
minority?
and a woman. I know. Maybe if I moved someplace else, I wouldn't be. That'd be an interesting feeling.
Go Seattle. Yeah. I'm not moving to Barstow anytime soon either, so don't worry.
But sometimes people don't realize that their beliefs are in contrast to you as a person. I mean, I definitely have met some people that have said some horrible things. And
Yes.
when I've talked to them and said, they get to know me, and I say, well, do you still believe that thing? Because that thing that you're talking about is actually about me. And you see their face of like, oh, because it's become human. And there's that shift. And then of course there's the other people who they're like, oh yeah, you're darn straight. I mean, I spit here. Yuck. But like
so much passion, Samantha.
I know. It just my body did what I couldn't. Should I leave this in or cut it out? We'll see. Anyway,
We'll see.
Like I know, right? We'll see. Yeah. But sometimes they're like, yep, I meant it about you. And there's no, sometimes people are set in their ways, but at least if there is the possibility of change, it does have to come from that place where you're willing to be vulnerable enough to have this dialogue. And hopefully the other person will meet you there.
And I definitely feel kind of like on the same track of what you're saying. Like what's the saying? You can get a lot more bees with honey than vinegar.
With vinegar.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said about love. You know what I mean? There really is. Like, I can not like what you're saying. You cannot like what I'm saying. And in that scenario, no one really grows. You know what I mean? No one really hears what's up. And some people are down to not grow and just be small-minded their whole lives. But even just with a little bit of love, I think there's a lot of opportunity to create that dialogue. And you said earlier, show humanity and show sincerity. Yeah. Some people don't even realize like what I'm believing or saying can affect you, because we don't know each other's trauma. We don't know each other's background. If you grew up in a certain culture your whole life, how can I say you're wrong? Because no one ever told you otherwise, or you ever had other information. But now with the internet, we're kind of in this weird world where everyone has all the information. So it's like, you don't really have an excuse, but why's the reason why you don't want to listen? Or how can I show love so that you can listen?
Yes, I love that. How can I show love so that you can listen? And that's all we can really do is do our part. And some days, we may not always have the amount of energy to be that open and giving, but at least if we're not giving out hate, Tabitha, am I going to mess up her name? Tabitha, is it Tabitha Brown? She's like the vegan cook who's like all like blown up to be this amazing sensation right now.
Okay.
But I need to find her social media for you guys. But if you look up Tabitha vegan, right? Mm-hmm. She has this, I just found her kind of recently, but she has this amazing thing she says where she's like, now I hope you have a good day, but if you can't, don't you go out and mess up anybody else's.
Yeah.
And it's so simple.
I like that.
Right? It's so simple, but a lot of people don't think about it like that, to have it that clear. Like some days you really may not turn your day into an amazing day by the power of your mindset. Sure. Maybe it's just going to be one of those days, and then you reset when you can, but just don't mess up anybody else's.
I heard this really, so I work with a nonprofit here and there, and we work with a lot of incarcerated youth. And if you have a great upbringing, you can turn into an amazing adult. But if you have horrible people in your life, or, maybe putting you down or whatever, you'll turn into a bad adult. And I think that it kind of works in the same way with adults. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they're necessarily like a lot of there are some horrible bad people in the world, But I think there are a lot of horrible bad people who aren't horrible bad people because they're horrible bad people. They're horrible bad people because no one ever showed them that little shine or that little openness or that friendship. Right. And I think it's interesting, you know, like if you go out every day and you try to be the best person you can do and just try to make someone else's life a little better, you can turn the switch on their life without even realizing. You know what I mean? Just smiling at someone could change the way they look at people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, there's so much in there. And unfortunately, it did freeze on my end for a minute. I'm hoping the recording picks it up. But I think enough of it came across. Like sometimes, sometimes people are...
I just said I hated Latinos. That's all I said. I think I'm very against... No, I'm Latino myself, just a bit. I can say
right.
It. Can I? I don't know. Will we edit it out?
We'll see. We'll see, right? You know how this works. Yeah. Obviously that he did not mean it, you guys. Otherwise I would not have laughed. Probably more spitting would have happened.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. There was so much in what you said that I just want to touch on, that I think there are two things. Yes, a million times too, just being that light for another person, or that piece of comfort when they really need it, that, hey kiddo, you got this, right? How that can just really have this amazing ripple effect. And I think so often when we're going about our days, we don't realize how huge that can be for somebody. If they're in a really tough spot, that can just be all the difference for them, you know. And then the other thing, what you were saying with kind of these systems in place of belief systems and things like that, where, you know, maybe people have these sort of hateful beliefs because, well, that's the only life they've known. And exactly. if they have somebody come in and show them that it's different, maybe they can change. And then on top of that, they may need to hear it a bunch of times, because it's also like how much is that system of thought, you know, with everyone that they know and love and care for, telling them this is what life is. I mean, do you think they're going to hear it once and all of a sudden be like, meet somebody different once and all of a sudden be like, oh, I see it now? You know, it's some of those things. How integrated is it into a person, and how much work will it take in order for that to change?
I like lived in the woods for a while. I own a couple crystals. I'm a pretty energy vibes guy. But that being said, I think really you intake everything that's around you. You know what I mean? Whatever you're experiencing more of, that's going to be more you. Whatever you're not experiencing of, that's going to be less of your energy. And I think it's an interesting time, because I feel like, especially since we're all addicted to our phones and social media, and the way just like these like matrixi, whatever they are, going in, my social media is filled with ads that are for, you know what I mean? Like fun, happy stuff. A lot of Disneyland ads, because I love Disneyland. You know, a lot of political ads going through there. And I think it's weird because that's my perspective on the world. Mm-hmm. Someone else's perspective, who might be, you know, in a smaller town or whatever, it might be a lot of hateful stuff. You know what I mean? Like their whole matrix on their social media is that's all they see. And I think it's interesting because there's energy in that. So I'm getting the energy from all the ads and everything I see and how different people are posting, but other people are also getting not good vibes over their social media. And I don't know about you, but I'm looking at my phone like 10 hours a day.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think there's something, one, to be said for that, but two, I think we also crave more human connection now more than ever, especially in this pandemic. So if my one interaction with the cashier at the grocery store is negative, then that energy is like, well, that's people now, because that was the one person I saw today. And but even if that one person asks me how I'm doing, cracks a joke, smiles, then that totally flips how I'm viewing people, because that's all the people energy I've intook for the past 2 days. Yes,
that these interactions have so much more weight because they're even more rare. And I want to share, okay, I have to ask you about your favorite crystal. I'm coming back to this. I have to ask you about your favorite crystal. I want to share a story about when I was waitressing, and then I want to talk about the hate comment. So, okay. The thing I wanted to say first about hate, which is I feel like I can have this perspective, and I can say this thing from all the years of acting training and just maybe being a little bit more of this kind of person anyway, right? Is that as hard as it is for me to get on the side of somebody who hates me, I also realize that that is judgy of me to see them as being a hateful person, where their actions are hateful. But I think if I had to play that character, right, I would
Yes.
see that their actions are coming probably from a place of love, but it's for love that is everything that is not me. You know, they're coming from a
Yes.
place of wanting to protect the world they know. And I'm a threat to them because what my reality is in contrast to theirs. I don't see it that way. I see, hey, we could have this world, we can share it, you know,
Snap,
and
snap, 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 snap,
right,
snap, snap.
you know,
I'm
and it
loving
would
this.
just, yes, we very much agree in this, like, love, you guys, it's the answer. But it's such a loaded word. What does love, like, what does love mean? It's an active word. How do you show your love in the world? And the way that we do it, we all have our own capacities and our own tendencies and our own beliefs around it. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that for a moment.
No, for sure. As lovey-dovey as I am, when stuff was popping off, you know, about a month ago with just all the protests and riots, I was so angry. And it was very similar to when Trump got elected. Because like what you were saying, this world that they live in, they don't want you to shatter it. Like, I believe I was living in a country that was chill and people were smart and there were a lot of good people. And then the majority, electoral-wise, put someone in office. I was like, the world that I thought I lived in has been shattered, because I thought we were all kind of on the same page. And it's so weird because I think it all just comes down to like lack of experience and education sometimes. And I'm not calling people dumb or uneducated or anything like that. But if you've never had these experiences and your perspective is limited, like, we need to take the opportunity to open that up a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean? For the benefit of everyone.
The benefit of everybody. And it is hard it's hard to be the ones that are responsible for that when we are the ones that are on the suffering end.
Exactly.
And that is a burden of higher consciousness. You guys, I should just go ahead and call this the crystal episode. So if you could just join me in gathering out our crystals.
You'll get some people who might take that the wrong way and they'll tune in, be very confused, but they'll be too high to notice. So don't worry. Some of these Renton comics. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No,
it's so that's good. That's so funny because I totally did not even think of that. I'm not sure who all of my listeners are. You can feel free to, message me, let me know who you are. Yeah. But I was hoping that with the design for like my coaching logo design, that obviously there's a bit of energy work involved, the dragonfly, the colors, it's there's this sort of movement and flow to life and the creative process. And so I don't want to offend anybody, but these are just my, some of my beliefs here with that. I'm curious, you're talking about living in the woods and having crystals.
Yes.
And do you have any favorite crystals you can share with us?
None on hand right now, none that I can show. They're all in my room. But so my crystal experience is very different from, I think, a lot of other people's crystal experience. Like, especially when I was living in the woods, I had a Reiki person, and I would do a ton of Reiki, and the crystals were very much involved in that. And I remember not even asking like what does what, but rather like, what do you feel like from this session? Do you feel like I need? And they're like, oh, well, take this rose quartz, take this opal. And there was another one, like a little onyx black one. And they're just like, see how you work with these. If they benefit you, cool. If they don't, whatever, at least you have them. And I kind of see them almost as like, somewhat like Lucky Charms. You know what I mean? Like, not necessarily like, I have to hold on to my rose quartz today because I'm feeling anxious and now I need to charge it. It's more just like, I have these and I feel like everything has energy. You have energy. I have energy. Trees have energy. The sky has energy. So why not these crystals? I'm sure they have some type of energy off them.
Right.
And I kind of just like having them and then being kind of like, this is mine and this is what I don't know. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
It's a very like hipster, like, what do you call those things where you could like fiddle with them? They have like a button
spinner
on one
widget?
side.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, they're like my fidget spinners. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm not really doing this because I think it does anything. I just like how it feels in my hand.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to ask too, because, certain words and things, people have an image associated with it and it may or may not be the way that you are. If we don't ask questions, then we have our assumptions of how you are with your crystals and this and that. Because I also love crystals, and I love them because my mom loved them, and just they make me feel good. I think they're beautiful. They feel nice. I mean, they're just gorgeous to look at. And for me, I don't know a ton about all of them, but I know some of them are associated with like rose quartz. I know that one's associated with the heart and with love or compassion. And I love the pink colors of it. It's just beautiful.
They just look cool. Yeah.
They do. And then also the thing is, when I look at it, it reminds me. So like if I have a certain sort of attachment for it, it reminds me. So yeah, I think we're pretty similar in our view of them. I personally haven't had Reiki done yet, but I do find that it would be pretty interesting, I think.
It's cool. I think it's as cool as you want it to be. You know what I mean? It's like, if you walk in with good intentions, cool. But if you walk in being like, this is going to be dumb, they're obviously going to have a horrible 30 minutes and lose $100.
Can you tell the listeners what Reiki is for those who aren't familiar?
For sure. I've had a couple different Reiki people. The first person who I actually met in Occidental up in the woods, it was very much a process where it's like, let's sit down, breathe, and let's just like put energy toward all your chakra regions and really just kind of like clear your mind. And we'll talk through almost like a meditation, and that'll be great. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And then when I was getting my MFA, we actually had another student who was, I think, a year below me, and she was a Reiki person. So when I was at school, she was like, well, if you ever want to do Reiki, like, let me know, I can hook you up. I'm like, yeah, sure. And her Reiki was almost very like massage based. So it was more like, all right, there is a lot of tension and there's a lot of like bad energy like happening in your shoulders, whether it's you slouching, whether it's you just like holding a lot of energy in there. So it was more like, let's work these kinks out with the crystals around us. And I've done a couple of the Reiki things here and there. They've all been a little different, but yeah, mostly it's really just, I kind of look at it as just clearing your mind. It's like a shower for like your mind and your soul and your heart. Like you just feel clean and lighter afterwards.
That's nice. Yeah. You definitely you'd want to take a shower that way. You wouldn't want to actually like really bathe your brain. And
I found these crystals in the dirt. Let's just rub them in. It'll be great. And one thing that we were talking about crystals earlier that I think is really fun for me, and I think this might be a comic thing or an actor thing or a writer thing, so I don't know if you vibe with this, but still have super bad ADHD, and I remember always like creating stories in my head whenever I like got bored, but it was really like, where was I and what happened there in the past? So I don't know, I might be at like an old bar and I'll be bored drinking my drink and I'll be like, wow, I wonder if, in the 40s when this bar was around, who was here? Was like the mafia here? Did they have like live shows? What were people drinking? When I'm at Disneyland, I'm like, wow, years ago. Oh man, Walt Disney probably walked through here. There was probably this ride here. I wonder if a family got in a fight there. And with crystals, I kind of do that too, where it's like, I wonder where you've been. You know what I mean? You're so old and you're so cool. And I would love to hear your story. And I can't hear it because you can't talk, but I'm going to make it up. And it's fun just to like play with that. Like, who else did you affect? What powers did you give people? What things did you do when you were coming up? Who's your brother, Crystal? Who's your sister, Crystal?
Can you make this a show?
The Crystal Show?
Yeah. I think it would be really fun. Yeah, I can collaborate with you. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, we'll
That's right.
it.
You guys heard it here first.
First, third, crystals. We'll have a commercial break. Then we'll do the crystal meth segment, and then a commercial break, and then we'll just have us drinking Crystal Light for the rest of the episode. We'll really get every market.
That's right. And for those of you who can't tell, the crystal meth thing is a joke. I don't do drugs.
Neither of us do drugs.
Right.
If you're on video, you caught a little wink. If you're on audio, you heard me say you caught a little wink.
Oh, from him, not from me.
If you're on audio, I'm not going to say who.
Okay, you guys, I'm going to scrap this whole interview.
We don't do drugs at all. I enjoy a nice glass of wine and maybe some indica, but it ends there.
I, for a second, was going to say, I don't know what indica is. And then I realized I should know the name because I live in Washington.
You do live in Washington.
I do.
I was blown away when I first went to Washington. Things were still not legal out here in California. And then I went there and I'm like, you guys treat this like it's like a cool store. Well, of course it's a store, it's a dispensary, but there's like menus and all this crazy stuff. The Washington's a beautiful place. Not even Washington, the Washington. It is the
Oh my
prime spot.
goodness. Washington is a gorgeous state though. I'm happy to live someplace so beautiful. Just have to say, cause I love trees. I love trees. So when you're talking about like the life of things and what you're wondering about with the stones, I wonder that about trees. They've been here for so long. What have they seen? What are they thinking? And I suppose part of that could be, listeners, you tell us. Like, you know, let us know in the comments. Do you wonder about trees too? Is this an actor thing? Are we naturally inclined to worry or to wonder about inanimate objects and real live people? You know, what their thoughts or feelings are? I wonder.
I feel like as performers and artists and comedians, I think we really like get off on like expanding a story. You know what I mean? Let's like use our imaginations and creativity. Just like, if there's nothing, let's create something out of it. Like It's just like in us. So when we look at like really old things like giant redwood trees, or I always, whenever I'm in Washington, I go to Snoqualmie, you know, the Salish Lodges, that big waterfall. And you just kind of create stories about it. You're like, who saw this waterfall? Who helped build this waterfall? Were, you know, Native Americans here for a while? Like, do they know about this? Were settlers, did they come through and did they push them out? Or did they like, were they homies for a minute? Like, what kind of weird animals have been in here? Did a bear fall in this waterfall? Like, it's just fun to create things out of nothing because our minds are crazy.
Spring break for the Bears 2020. They can live it up. Less humans around, right? Maybe I don't know.
Spring break for the Bears is actually going to be in Capitol Hill. Catch my drift.
I should have known you were going to follow that up with something. Oh my goodness. Okay.
We got Seal Weekend right after.
Oh man. Okay, so I have to ask. Well, I don't have to, but I want to ask you. I did hear obviously about how it, you know, being a comedian and actor and all of that, how it helps you connect with other people, and that makes communication a bit easier and more pleasant, right?
Yes.
More possible. Was there ever like something in your life that being a performer has made it easier for you to deal with? Like anything difficult that you overcame, or a way in which you feel like you were able to connect with a deeper part of yourself?
Yes, totally. I feel like, so stand-up is really difficult, just a little bit, but I feel like, and you can probably speak to this a little bit too, like once you have your first fun show, you're good. You know what I mean? You're super good, because even if you bomb for the next, you know, week or month or whatever, you know you can do it. You know what I mean? You have that confidence. And I think that confidence has really helped me in life, because whenever I was hesitant or worried or anxious or not sure if I can do something, I could be like, you know what? Like, I did stand up once in front of 200 people when I was 22 years old, and they all laughed. And if I can do that, I can do whatever. You know what I mean? So I think that has really like helped me grow and helped me really just like understand myself more, where it's like, if there's anything you're fearful about, don't be fearful, because you can accomplish it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Comedy's hard. You can fill out this tax form. You know what I mean? Or, you know, apply to this job or whatever. I feel like in terms of being a performer and maybe how it's affected me in a more deep way, I feel like I'm very conscious of being, I try not to be on and I try not to be off. I try to just be me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think being a performer, you have to consciously realize when there are times that you're on and times that you're just a normal person and you're off, before you can actually like make that connection and be like, well, I'm not going to try to be on or off or be conscious of it. I'm just going to be me in any situation, because that's more sincere and that's more natural. I think that was really big for me, because I think before I was always really like hacky, jokey guy. And then like when I'm with friends, I'm like, oh, hi, what's going on? Or I'd be super manic and I'd be like, oh, I'm a joking guy now. But yeah, just really figuring out that on and off switch and like kind of turning it off and being like, yo, let me just be me all the time. I think it really helped me kind of realize more about who I am and discover more about myself.
Yeah. I'm taking that in right now and processing it, because I want to hear you, right? And not what I think you said, right? You know what I mean? Because I feel, for me, the pauses are important for my listening.
Yes.
You know, and so, yeah, just hearing that the sort of thing when you're a performer, used to being in front of people, and especially as a comedian, like needing to make that joke, being big, being engaging, all that stuff. And then when you're not performing, you kind of want to bring it down to your, like a different level where you feel like you're turning the switch off, but then realizing you don't need to disconnect. You can be
You can always
yourself
just
and
be. Yeah.
always be. And so of course I'm going to connect this to the coaching and like my reason for coaching. And I think I told you a little bit about this before, as we were talking before the podcast, this is why I'm so passionate about bringing those things that I've learned, getting to be a stand-up comedian, getting to be an actor, getting to do some musical theater, getting to like host, getting, to do all of these different things, because there are pieces of myself where I get to be supercharged and access more of myself that I don't need to do in my day-to-day life. And so these are lessons that, we've learned from experience and our education in it, where, the average person, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that as much every day. And so, yes, we're always being ourselves, but I don't have to be firing on all cylinders all the time. And, so how do we share it? Because just like you were saying, taking it even back further, when you were talking about the bath for your like brain and your heart and your soul, like the Reiki bath, what it felt like to you. I think, athletes stretch, people stretch, we need to exercise our muscles. And so I do think that is such a gift of being a performer, is that we get to stretch that supercharged part of ourself. Right.
Sure. And I think also, a lot of us get into performing and acting because we love validation. You know what I mean? It feels so good to hear an applause break. It feels so great to hear people laugh. It feels so great to make someone happy. And it's interesting because we kind of get in because we need that validation. But when you level up as an artist, it's when you stop caring about that validation. And you kind of like, I don't know, like you can just be you instead of be like hyper you. And you really, I don't know, it's a crazy, weird, cool system.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like my relationship to stand-up comedy, at least at this point, because you said you've been doing it since you were 22. And
just about, yeah.
So that's been, well, you don't have to tell people how old you are, but I'm imagining.
I'm 73.
Okay.
No, I just turned 30.
Hey, happy 30. Happy
Thank
belated
you,
30.
30.
Hey.
Appreciate it. I did a mic in 2008. And actually the first mic I ever did was the Laugh Factory, because I was like, comedy club near me, open mic, Laugh Factory ad,
right.
Let me do this. So I did that and it went not great. I did it again in 2010. Then when I did it in 2012, that's when I really like started going to open mics, trying to get little bar shows here and there. So it's been quite a journey. And the crazy thing is like none of us have the same journey.
Right.
So like you ask any comic like, oh, what's it like being a comic? You're like, well, I can tell you my experience, but they have completely different, you know what I mean?
Right.
They did this stuff. They came up this way.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know what I was going to say that. I think my experience in relationship to comedy is a little bit different in that I'm still fairly terrified. I say that now because I've been rusty, right? Because we've been staying at home.
For sure.
And the more often I go up, the less terrified I am, but it's definitely the most terrifying art form I've done so far. But it does give you that confidence of knowing like, hey, I did it, and then people still laughed. So sometimes I'll admit there are certain shows where I'm like, I don't necessarily feel particularly funny, but they laughed at my jokes. And so I'm like, well, I want to make people feel good. I want to make them still like, I want to make them laugh. I want to make them smile. It's very satisfying. So,
and I think the crazy thing about comedy is when you have a good show, you know what you're doing, you're killing it, and it feels great. Mm-hmm. But when you have a bad show, you learn something that night. So you grow. So it's kind of a win-win, because you either like kill it and you didn't really get any growth, but you had a great time, or you didn't kill it. And sure, that's not a great feeling. And you might cry in the shower the next day, but at least you can like take something out of that and be like, what didn't work? Why didn't that work? All right, that definitely works. So I'm going to keep that in. Yeah. I'm not going to do this. Oh, I did this thing with this audience member that I don't usually do, but it paid off. So it's kind of crazy because it's a fun game because you're either having a great time or leveling up.
Yes. That's awesome. Yes, absolutely. I have absolutely learned a lot from the shows that were not my favorites.
Yes, 100%. I
Definitely.
feel
And
like
oh, well, my
I was just
least
gonna
my
say,
least favorite my least
go for
favorite
it, go for it.
theater performance,
Yeah.
the most difficult director for me that I worked with. I think she hated me. That's the one that I learned the most from. It was the most painful and it was the most enlightening. But it's because
Yeah.
I decided it was going to be enlightening, right? So when you say that you win-win in your stand-up shows, it's because you decided you were going to win-win. Because plenty of people go
Yes.
home and sulk. Do you know?
It's all about perspective. And
Yep.
I think at the end of the day, like, I love stand-up, improv, performance, writing. I love all of it so much. And if it ever brings me down, I have to remind myself, like, I got in this for fun. You know what I mean? Like, I could have a real job. Well, I don't know. My resume is pretty bad, but I could have done something else, but I'm doing this because I want to do it. So when it's hard, like, I need to have the perspective of, as bad as it gets, like, what's the golden nugget out of this? And if it's growing, it's that. If it's learning a new skill, it's that. If it's
Right.
whatever, you know what I mean?
Did you read by Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic?
No. What's going there?
Okay.
Open my mind.
This book, I should have, well, I didn't know we were going to talk about it, but I want to reach for it. It's on the other side of the curtain here. Big Magic. It's an amazing book. I wish I'd read it when I first started this whole thing, like back when I was first, an undergraduate. But, well, I don't think she'd written it then. But anyway, for anybody who's an artist of any kind, or if you're just interested in the creative process in your life, you don't have to be an artist. I recommend this book. She talks about it is the creative process. Like every artist that I've ever met, there's the ups, the downs, and it doesn't matter what level you get to. There's always the sort of highs and the lows that come with the creative process. And I found it to be just so satisfying hearing that from somebody who's like at the top of her game. And yes, she's a writer, but like, yes, that's the process. And when you're talking about how you have to remind yourself that you got into this for fun, she says, sorry, you guys, I'm going to swear. I try not to swear too often in life, but she says essentially any job. This may be a quote that she took from one of her teachers. I can't remember. But anyway, in the book, she says, what is the shit sandwich you're willing to eat? That's so disgusting.
Yeah.
My dog over here is like, anyone serve it up. But but that, the illusion
that hits hard.
That you're going to get this perfect career, you're going to get this perfect anything, and you're not going to have to eat this sandwich, this special, disgusting sandwich. Well, what's the sandwich you're willing to eat? What's the one that's the most palatable? And so if our love for whatever our job is, or our relationship, or whatever it is that we're doing and pursuing in life, if our love for that outweighs that sandwich, well, it's not a bad deal, because the sandwich is still going to show up.
Well, it's crazy. I would like it on rye. I'm just going to put it out there right now just to make sure everyone's clear. But I think what's interesting is there's this balance you're kind of talking
Rye
about.
bread.
Sourdough. Let's do sourdough.
I was going to say sourdough. Yeah, sourdough.
Oh, we all love good sourdough.
Yep.
But there is a balance that I think we all kind of go through where, oh, it's fine. It's 100 degrees in LA. I'm just like sweating my eyeballs. But there's this weird balance of like, at all times we have to be fulfilled and come to the understanding that we will never be fulfilled at the same time. Because let's look at like the biggest comic ever, you know what I mean? Whoever it may be, Seinfeld or Chappelle or whoever it is, they might get their TV show, but that's not the end game. The end game is to get another special and get a special. And then they have to do a movie. And then they have to get a Tony or an Oscar or an Emmy. And then they want to get the Mark Twain prize. Like there's always going to be more to do. So you're never going to be fulfilled in that aspect, because no matter how great you're doing, someone's going to be doing it better than you. Someone's going to have more resources. Someone's going to have more hookups. So it's this endless game of shit sandwiches. But at the same time, if you're fulfilled just playing the game and always hustling, always leveling up, but also just you're happy just doing it, then you win. You know what I mean? Like there are people who are, oh, go for it. There's people who are like millionaires who are unhappy, but there are people who are super poor who love being, I don't know, whatever their job is. They might love doing custodial work, or they might love painting or whatever. Doesn't bring them cash, but they will live happier than the person with everything who doesn't like what they're doing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in that, the reminder to always just love the process. Love the process, focus on the process. There's another quote from the guy that created the Alexander technique. I'm blanking on the name, something Alexander, I assume. And one of my favorite quotes of be patient, stick to principle, and it will open like a giant cauliflower.
Yes.
Which should be especially popular right now with the cauliflower craze.
Yes. All you keto people, listen up for a happier life.
That's right. Yeah. And the other thing, I think I probably watched it on some documentary or History of Humanity or, one of those educational things, is that the human brain, it's there to solve problems. So there's a reason why we're not complacent. It's hardwired into us to have this sort of desire to achieve whatever the next thing is.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's I think it's built into some people a little more than others. But in that, it's crazy because as you look at people who retire, you know what I mean? They can retire, they can have a good life, do their thing, but a lot of them end up getting really bored. And a lot of people retire and they might pass away very shortly after because, they don't have something to do. Right. And if you find something to do that allows your brain to like creatively find something that's stimulating and exciting and you're constantly just like working, that's the dream. That's fun. You know what I mean? If I had $1 million right now, I would probably buy a house or probably an apartment in LA, just with the price difference. And then I might, I don't know. I might go to Disney World. I would all go to all the Disney parks.
Your season passes. Come on. That's right.
Oh, I would just boom, 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 boom. But after I accomplish that, like that would take a year. What else is there to do? Like I would hate my life after that. So I've done everything, what I mean?
Well, yeah. And so when you're saying like some people they're more hardwired to kind of like onto the next thing that's sort of ambitious or, next thing. I agree. I know we're both very much like that.
Let's go. Anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I also think there's a difference for some people that what is their next thing? Maybe it's more in their personal life. Like what's their next vacation or what's their next what's their next pair of shoes or their next hairstyle, the next time they go to the nail lady, the next time, where are they going to the restaurant? Most people I've met have that. It's just some people, it's a little bit more more for recreation,
Yeah. Well, and I think we're kind of taught when we're younger, what do you have to do? You have to go to school, you gotta go to college, you gotta get a great job. And essentially you have to get a great job so you can work really hard so you can pay for big vacations. You know what I mean? Or you can pay for the nice car. And that in itself is kind of like, that's a fun game. You know what I mean? Maybe it's not what's best for me. Maybe it's not what's best for you or a lot of other people who want to just constantly be fulfilled and have fun time all the time. But for them, if they're fulfilled, if they work 60 hours a week, but by the end of 2 years, they can afford to go to all the Disney worlds, then you know what? Power to them. You know what I mean? That's their like problem solving, boom, boom, boom. Right.
Yeah. And they just might have something they do for 60 hours a week that gives them $400 an hour and they might love it.
I think I have $12 in my bank account. I need a $5 foot long wear. It'll be great. I'm kidding. Thank you, unemployment. Actually, unemployment's hooking it up. I appreciate them.
Oh my goodness. We're almost at time, but I cannot leave people with only $12 in your bank. Actually, it's great that you said that. It was a really good way to deter the people. You deter the people away who are going to steal your identity. They're all like going online to buy the matching outfit and the backdrop, and then they hear $14, like, not worth it.
No, he's maxed out enough. It's crazy right now. Real quick, I don't know about you, I've been loving quarantine. Like, I hope we get out of it, and I hope everything opens, and I hope people are safe and no one else dies. but it really forced me to like have downtime and like reflect in a quarantine, opposed to be like, what's next? It gave me a break that I didn't think I needed. And I don't know about all you other comics listening out there, but this quarantine money is like working 8 headliner weekends a week. It's wonderful. It's way better than our MC feature pay we were getting pre-pandemic.
Oh, wow. I don't even know what to say. I mean, I do know that everybody's having such a different experience, and it's I have a hard time saying the things that I like about the quarantine, because we're in it for a really horrible, I mean,
it sucks. We're all done. It's horrible. I'm not advocating for more quarantine.
No, I know.
Disease.
But it's
personally, I've just been like, this is wild.
Right. No, I get it. I mean, we have to look at the positive side. I just feel bad for anybody who's listening who, they're having such a horrible time where they've lost somebody special. And I know that you're not taking that away. You're just saying, this is what's working for me. This is what's working for you on your bright side.
And if you're listening and you're having a tough time, you know what? Hit me up on Instagram. I will give you a private show for $12.
I was like, okay, we're gonna wind in the $12. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah,
just enough for a couple burritos.
Burritos. Okay, but I do completely agree with you in the sense that it's been nice to have less to do and focus more on the things that I'm going to be really specific about choosing to do.
Yes. And
that's been really, really nice.
And I now have kind of, at least with the way I was working before, a little extra resources to do those things. And I have so much time now to do all those things.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's like in this horrible thing, there's some bright lights, and I will hold on to them because they are the minimal bright lights of our lives right now.
Now, can you, before we have to leave, can you suggest a crystal to supercharge that light?
You know what? We have been on that rose quartz vibe, and I am going to advocate for it. I don't think I've ever bought a crystal. I've always been like gifted crystals here and there. Oh, and my first Reiki person gifted me this rose quartz crystal. So it's kind of like, I have a lot of attachment to it and I have a lot of love for it. So hopefully if he gets rose quartz, get that love too.
I love that. You know what? If we could just get a rose quartz for everybody to hold up and just like Care Bear stare it out. A Care Bear stare with the rose quartz and just help that love energy.
Are there any rose quartz sponsorships? Maybe we can look into that for the podcast.
I know, right?
What? We'll shout you out in the middle of the episode. We just need about 4 to 5 moderate crystals.
You know what? Please be sure to contact us. Let me know. I'll add it in the link. Okay.
I would love it.
Awesome. Cool. Well, was there anything else you wanted to share real quick before?
Follow me on Instagram. Check out my TEDTalk. I have a show coming out this fall on Fox. I'm not allowed to talk about it really, but there's enough general information in there to where you'll figure it out. Maybe you won't. Anyways, get a rose crystal. I love you. It's going to be super great. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Thank you so much. It was just awesome getting to catch up with you and having you on the podcast. So I really thank you so much for your time. And for you, of course, like he said, please follow him at Instagram at Erik Escobar. And then also, if you're looking for a performance coach to help you bring more of your full self in voice, body, and mind to your life and work, you can always reach me at www.beyondtech. I was giving you my website, beyondtechniquecoaching@gmail.com. The website is the www one. Oh boy. It's been an interesting episode. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Help get the word out. And you know what? Maybe grab some of the rose quartz. Stay safe and stay healthy. See you next time.